What's going on, guys? I'm back with another recap, but before we get into that, I got this great little story to tell y'all. So I was hanging out.
Hey everyone, this is JP's Inner Voice. I thought I announced that the story he is sharing has absolutely no relevance to anything that will be presented today. In fact, he thought the story would be far too entertaining to leave out of this video and would be a great segue into what we will be discussing today. He is a dumbass. Also, I would like to bring to your attention that I will be the speaker for most of this recap, and that this recap will be more focused on the laptop, as it is the best way to convey all the information talked about today. Also, this video is brought to you by Crispy Crunchy Chicken. I have not eaten there, nor do I intend to, but I got into a debacle with a man and he rates it high for great drunken recovery food. You can find them at your local urban inner city gas stations. Crispy Crunchy Chicken. It's just fried chicken at a gas station.
Alright, now let's get into week 11's recap.
Alright, what's going on everybody? So like I said, this video is not really going to be focused on me looking at the camera, more so that I have a lot more to show you with my laptop than I do looking at me. So here we go. So first things first, you actually want to install, or I guess install everything that you're going to need for the back end. I already have everything set up for this program, but I can still go through the steps. So the first thing we want to do is init. Looks like it won't let me do it because I've already, no, there it is. So you just press enter for the package name. You're pretty much just going to keep pressing enter until, you know, it'll set up all this stuff up in your package.json file, and it's creating the name, it scripts to let you start with whatever you need to. I already got the name set up here, as it says main server, or next to my main it says server.js. At the very bottom, right down here, I know everything is small, but I have not invested into screen reading technology yet. So actually, if it's okay, you're going to go ahead and hit yes. And then from there, now that you've set that up, you want to install everything that you're going to be using. So for this, we'll be using Express. We'll also be using Mongoose, which allows us to talk to our database, body parser. And again, I think all this stuff is already installed. And on top of that, NodeMon, just because honestly I don't know what it does, but it keeps my server from crashing like crap. So you press enter, it does all this crazy stuff that I still don't know how to do because I'm not that in-depth of a developer, but I'm a back-end developer now. I'm full stack now, guys. I know what's going on. So it installs all this stuff for you, and once it does that, boom, you got your packages installed. So that's first things first. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is set up your main point of entry file. I have it called server.js, as I mentioned in the terminal. And so what I have here is I've imported or required Express, which is like how jQuery is to JavaScript. So you can see that right here. It's a variable Express. I've included body parser, so it can read JSON files. We'll get into that in a second. And then my module Express, I decided to put it into app so that I can make it accessible and use all the commands Express allows you to use, so I don't have to try to type everything vanilla node style, and I wasn't going to anyways. And I also set up my port here, which should be listening on 5001. And right here I have two other files called API, or it's just called good deeds. It's in my API folder, and I have a good deeds too. I'll explain what those do in a minute. We have a function down here which sets up my database, allowing database connection so I can talk to my database, and that way it's persisting all my info that I want to save, or it's retrieving all the info that's already saved. Down here, like I said earlier, we have Express module being used, or its app is now using Express module, which allows me to use like .use or .listen. And right here I set up two main routes, and I'll get into that in a second. And then I have my app listening to my port that I have set up. And so since I have my port set up, now I can show you guys this. That's right, we are back at the terminal, and now I need to start my server. Boom, if you look at the very bottom here, you can't see that because it's highlighted, but it says listening on port 5001, which I had set up earlier. Alright, so I'm not going to try to get long-winded here, but the next thing I had to set up was a database link up in my schema, and so my database is with MLab right now. As you can see here, I'm already in it, and this is pretty much where all the data I save is going to be put. And of course, you have to get your URI to connect that up to your IDE, and as you see right here, I have that set up. And if you go back to my server.js, we actually had the Mongo URI right here being called right back here, which we required from the config folder, which had my keys.js. It's being put into the db variable. And of course, we had to use Mongoose to connect to it and all. So we use mongoose.connect, which is connecting with the variable database, which is being, brought from my config folder, Mongo URI, all that. And it's just setting up my database connection. If it's successful, it will let me know that I connected to the database. If not, it's going to throw an error and also let me know that there was an error connecting to my database. And we call that function down here. Oh my God. Alright, since we already have my database connected and all, the biggest, most important thing that you should probably have is a schema set up. Otherwise, how is it going to put any JSON file or model or something to model after into those databases? So here I have set up is a schema, which took me for a long time to figure out what that was. And all it is just a model for JSON, pretty much. And how I have it set up is the user can put in like a name, a deed, a part of town, number of people involved, and the date, and put a little timestamp on there. And under name and deed, I have them required to be true. So what that means is that you have to have a name, or if you're putting in a deed, you have to have a deed, and it's required, or else it won't like post, or it won't retrieve data, or mainly it just won't post. And I have them false for part of town or number of people involved. And if you don't put in any part of town or the number of people involved, it doesn't mean that it's not going to post. Down here, I have it exporting, so we'll be able to grab it later. Alright everybody, so this is also Postman, which I think is like a middleman for allowing you to see how everything is being transferred between your database and your IDE. I know y'all mentioned me saying something about posting earlier, and that's exactly what I have set up here is my post. And I'm going to get into routes in just a second, but what I want to show y'all is that it's set up the same way my schema is. It needs a name, a deed, a part of town, and the number of people involved. Well, if I decide to actually post that to my database, I'm going to send it. And you'll see down here I have a message set up, and I'll show you all that in a second. It says post request is okay from deed API routes and routes from that folder and all. And down here you see the same format of how everything is set up. You look at the very bottom here. It's exactly what my last thing said. Pretty sure it is. And of course, if I have it set up as a get, so now it's going to retrieve all that information from my database. And you can see at the very bottom, I pretty much made a duplicate, not a double, you know what I meant, guys. And that's pretty much how that's set up. So let's go into how everything is being transferred. So this is my router page. This is pretty much setting up the pipeline for my get request, my post request. If I need to delete something, I can do that. So let me just walk you through what's going on here. So in here, I've required Express, so I don't have to, again, do Node vanilla style. Nobody really wants to do that. You guys should look up what that's like. It's terrible. And then I've used a module or method function, something has brace or has parentheses, so it does something to Express, and I've linked that to router. So I've also required my good deeds model. Remember that schema I was talking about? Boom, right there. So we're going to go back to my good deeds route. And so what this allows me to do is with router, I can use functions such as get, I can use post, and what it's doing, I'll just walk it through, is when I say router.get, it's going to go take this route. This is something you plug in to your browser. So I'm on a local host right now on my port of 5001. So I'll go in my browser and I'll type in localhost colon 5001 slash. And I want to go back to my server.js right now. I would actually have to say slash homepage because I have all my routes set up on homepage in my API gooddeeds.js. So when I type that into my browser, it's expecting a request and a response in these parameters. And when it gets either one of those or both of those, it's going to do the gooddeeds.model or gooddeeds model, which is from my schema that I have up here. It's going to find the name, deed, part of town, number of people involved, and then it's gonna grab all those items and get them as JSON, and that again in my Postman is what you all saw when I got all of that stuff in my database. And now for post, this allows you to post stuff to your database. So when I say router.post in that route, it's going to again request response, and it's setting up a new good deeds model, a new deed JSON file to be posted. So it's gonna take everything from the body, and I wish I can get a little more detail about that, but I'm sure give me one more week and I can define that very well. It's expecting a name for a request, the deed of the request or request of a deed. Same thing for part of town and number of people involved. And down here, my new deed is going to save to my database, and then it's going to send something saying that post request is okay from deed API routes. That's what you guys saw when I have posted that. And it's my message letting me know pretty much, hey, your stuff is posted. And then I did not show y'all delete, and it does work. And so I can go ahead and do that. We'll go to my Postman, and I think we're going to delete, what is it? This one right here. I took the ID of it. Let's see if the ID matches. That is not the right ID. Oh, I'll be deleting cleaned house. Excuse me, that's the ID I took. So we're going to go to my delete. I'm going to press send. I'm going to go back to my Git, press Git, and as you can see, well, something was deleted, but not the one I was looking for. Either way it goes, my delete works. It took the ID of one of those JSON files and deleted it. So that was pretty much a quick rundown of me trying to explain backend with my early learning stages of backend. And I know this video was a little longer than anticipated, but that's the best I could squeeze it in. So back to this wild person that y'all like to watch.
All right, so that's the best I could do for 3 weeks of me learning backend. I know I didn't go to my usual process of day 1, day 2, no. I just scratch all that because that's pretty much what we did from day 1 all the way through day 4. And then day 5, we learned about publishing because that's important. You know, when you get this far with front end and back end, it's pretty much you want to go ahead and push a website. So that's pretty much what we got done in this week. Of course, I forgot to mention day 3, we did have soft skills. We learned about oral communication and some setting up our resumes and cover letters and getting our LinkedIn all together. This is a little more of a jumbled recap, but that's pretty much how everything went this week. That's all the information I have. So if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like. If you want to say something, throw me a comment, speak to me. You can find all my social media links in the description. Thank you to my new subscribers. Really appreciate that. One of them was from one of my college colleagues. It's kind of redundant. Anyways, again, that's all. Thank you guys for watching, and y'all have a great rest of the day, night, morning, doesn't matter. See you guys.